India's macroeconomic data set is set to see a big revamp with the new series GDP with a base year of 2022-23 set to be released on February 27. We have with us Secretary, Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation, Dr. Saurabh Garg, to tell us more about this mammoth exercise and what kind of an impact it will have on India's data quality. So, Dr. Garg, can you tell us how this GDP base year revision will improve the quality of data we have on the economy?
Just to give a bit of the background on what work has gone in moving to the new base year. Over the past 2 years, we've had different committees, in fact, a total of nearly 50 odd experts who have sat in 5 different committees, and combined there have been more than 40 meetings that they have held over the past 2 years. And to look at all the various aspects of the methodology being used, of the data being used, of the ratios and rates being used, of the subnational accounts. So I just wanted to mention that it's a mammoth exercise, as you mentioned very correctly. And it's a result of this. Now we have come to a stage that we would be releasing the revised numbers of the GDP with respect to the base of 22-23. There are 3 or 4 things that we are doing in this. Number one is that we now have a large number of new data sources available to us, and I can get into the details of that. But that will help to make the robustness and accuracy of the estimate so much better. The second thing is we will capture the structural changes in the economy which have happened over the past decade because of these new data sources and the changes that we are doing and also the availability of different aspects of the economy which are now available. The third is methodological changes that have been, which may be slightly technical and statistical in nature, but they're very important to ensure that there is intercomparability across countries is there. And the fourth is that international standards and definitions change over time. So we are incorporating those in our new GDP estimates. So a combination of these 4 aspects is what will ensure that the data quality further improves. Our numbers have always been robust, but there could be some areas where improvements were necessary, and that is what we have done in this.
Could you give us a sense of the methodology and new data sources that are being used in this series?
So among the new data sources, a lot of them are related to the fact that we, post-digital India, we have so much more real-time data available about the economy. So for example, GST is one of the largest, which gives an idea of the consumption patterns across geographies, across sectors, and up to a very granular level. Then we have a host of other administrative data like e-Vahan, which gives an idea of what is the usage on of road and transport. We have other digital data including from the railways, airfares, and these aspects which help us to give us granular information. Apart from this, I think there are 2 very significant changes we did was in collecting through surveys idea about the household sector or the informal sector. So we do an annual survey of unincorporated sector enterprises, which we've done now for 3 years. So that gives us a much more granular inputs on the activities that households and informal sector is doing. And the second is now we are bringing out a monthly periodic labor force survey. Because of this, we have changes from month to month about the employment status of people, what sectors they are involved in, what level of skills they have been able to acquire. In both these cases, whether it's the PLFS and the ASUS, which is the annual survey of unincorporated sector and enterprises, we were using indicators in the previous system. Even at that time, we used to do surveys in the base year, but we did not have the advantage of having annual surveys. So a combination of this digital sources that we have and the additional survey information that we have is what we are incorporating. Apart from this, we periodically do an All India debt and investment survey. We do a time use survey. So these periodical surveys that have been done, the household consumption expenditure survey, also inform the GDP calculations. And because of all this, the robustness increases.
Right, sir. So you also spoke about informal economy, and one of the concerns with the GDP is that it largely captures the formal economy. So will the new series also look into this, and how much more of the informal sector will be captured? And also, what about emerging areas like e-commerce and the digital economy?
Yeah. So the formal sector, as you correctly mentioned, it's easier to capture because we have the availability of annual reports from all corporates. The LLP is a new institutional framework that has come up over the past decade, and we have regular data regarding that. And so on with other institutional forms, whether it's trusts and societies, etc. The Because of the formal nature of these institutions, we have regular updates regarding their revenues, their activities, and what they are doing, and which effectively get captured. The unincorporated sector, the informal sector, is always a problem, and because that sector is large in India, it becomes all the more important to be able to capture that so much better. So as I mentioned that while even in the previous estimates, we used to do a survey in the base year and then look at the growth in the different sectors and activities, and then other indicators that we had, and then move the estimates based on the growth figures of these indicators and other proxies that we have. Now we have an annual survey which gives us direct information about it. As also the GST data is not only restricted to the formal sector, because given the turnover limits that there are, so a number of the larger informal sector also get covered. So we get an idea from that. So and plus because of the payments data that we have, other digital transactions we have a better sense of the economy, and therefore the capturing of this data is so much better.
Sir, and on the gig
Yeah.
economy,
Oh,
if you
yeah.
could, yes.
On the gig economy or e-commerce, the transactions which are done on formal platforms, which are done by companies, etc., in any case get reflected in the annual reports that we have. Apart from that, to get an idea of how many people are engaged in the gig sector, we in our surveys we have added information that we collect about how many people are engaged in that sector, whether they might be doing it from their homes or they are going somewhere. Even on the consumption side, in our consumption expenditure survey, we had included information about the percentage of purchases that are being made from e-commerce platforms. And even in our annual survey of unincorporated sector enterprises, we collect information on the use of the digital platforms, the use of the internet in sales. So from all this set of information, we get a fair idea of the extent of the gig economy and what is happening with e-commerce.
Right, sir, right. One of the concerns with the base year revision has been that it's been being done after very long periods, sir. So, do you plan to do this more frequently now?
Yeah, so international norm is about to do it every about 5 years or so. The previous round, we could not do it earlier, partly because of the changes that were the GST was a major change that was introduced, and it really revamped the industrial and the service sector. And then COVID came in between. And 22-23 was the first normal year after COVID, and that's when we did our consumption expenditure survey, and which is what we are using now in the CPI earlier and using as a base. Going forward, we hope that we expect to stick to the international norms of about 5 years or so. So a year or two, it could always happen for various reasons, but that's the expectation. And just to mention that over the past many years, this is the 9th revision we are doing. So it's been done more or less at a frequency of 5 to 7 years, and we expect to stick to that.
Right, sir, right. And so India's macroeconomic statistics were recently also in the news because of the IMF report and the rating that we had got. So will this revision take care of the concerns it had raised in terms of the frequency of revision and deflation and other issues?
So one of the main issues which had been raised is that our base year had become outdated. It's 2011-12, and as I mentioned, the international norm is 5 to 7 years or so. So that's one of the basic issues, and we are correcting that. Apart from that, there were certain technical or statistical methodological issues that had been raised, something which is called double deflation, something about the discrepancy, and also about how we are estimating the informal sector. So I've already dwelt in depth on the informal sector, what additional data we have. Regarding deflation, there's a technicality of what is called double deflation, which is used in manufacturing to get a better idea of the actual value addition that has been done in production, which in a way tries to separate the price effect and the quantity effect. The price effect, if I can just spend a minute, is to ensure that any increase in prices can also lead to an increase in the economy. But if the production remains the same, there is no net addition in the sense of value addition in the economy. It's only a change in prices. So that issue we are taking care of in the new series. And the discrepancy which had been mentioned, that when you calculate GDP, when you are calculating such a large activity across thousands and lakhs of people working and lakhs of sectors that people are working, you want to calculate the GDP by more than one method, so that if there are some mistakes made in one, it can be validated by the other. And that's why we calculate the GDP, what is called using the production approach, by looking at how many cars were produced or how many pizzas were served, or by the consumption experts, that how many kilos of vegetables were purchased or how much fish was consumed. So we look at both the production side and the consumption side, and if there are any discrepancies, try and see how it can be resolved and see where the problem is. In the new series, we are taking care of that by publishing what is called the supply use table, which looks at what all items have been supplied and what all where they have been used. So there is a complete match between what has been produced and what has been used. So given the combination and the methodological changes we are doing, we think that it becomes even more robust.
Okay. And the revision comes soon after we've had the union budget, which had come out with its own set of estimates on growth, inflation, etc. So how far will this new series impact those estimates that were given to us in the budget?
Yeah. So as I mentioned, the estimates even in the earlier series, we feel were quite robust, and that's been used in the budget. There are minor changes always expected. It could be positive, it could be negative, but we don't see any substantial large changes happening which would necessitate any change in the estimates that have been prepared.
Right. And lastly, sir, from the ministry side, you already had the CPI base year revision. You're going to release the new GDP base year tomorrow on February 27, and then the IIP base year revision will be completed by May. Yes. So does that mean that India's macroeconomic data set, the revision, the long pending revision that was due, is that exercise over for this cycle?
Absolutely. These are the three major macroeconomic indicators: inflation, GDP, and the industrial index. All three are getting revamped. We have already revamped, for example, our labor and employment data. We bring it out on a monthly basis, which is the international norm. We bring out an annual survey of industries, which looks at the manufacturing sector in the formal manufacturing sector. We already have, for the past 3 years, the annual survey of unincorporated sector enterprises. The only data gap in this was the formal service sector. So this year, we are also starting an annual survey of the incorporated service sector enterprises. So with this entire thing, with these three and the surveys that are already being published and the ones on the only one that we are starting now, would ensure that we have a much more complete and accurate and granular information about the economic status, which will definitely help decision making going forward, which will help to ensure that identify areas where interventions are needed, and those interventions would then be possible.
Great, sir. Thank you. So we hope that the concerns that frequently come up about India's data quality, both from within and outside the country, are addressed by this series of base revision. And thank you so much for your time, sir.
Thank you.
If you like the video, do like, comment, share and subscribe.